Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Real Cooking with Rapid Rod. I want to give thanks for you guys joining me again today. Tonight's meal is going to be actually lobster macaroni and cheese, but we're going to call it seafood macaroni because we're going to have so many different varieties of seafood in the macaroni. And tonight's ingredients are going to call for salt and pepper. It's going to call for fresh mozzarella cheese. It's going to call for mild cheddar cheese, provolone cheese, sharp cheddar cheese. Oh, I forgot my smoked Gouda cheese. I didn't put that out, but it's going to call for smoked Gouda cheese, some natural shaved Parmesan cheese, and our seasonings are going to basically be my Old Bay, Old Faithful, never leave home without it. We're going to use some milk. We're going to use some panko breadcrumb seasonings, and we're going to use some white sherry cooking wine towards the back end. We're also going to use a little butter, onion, fresh garlic, and for the seafood entree, we're going to use some fresh shrimp that we're going to clean and devein all of this stuff. Fresh shrimp, fresh scallops, lobster tails, and snow crab legs. These are going to be the ingredients in my seafood mac and cheese. And so without any further ado, all right, so we've really cleaned our seafood really well. We've rinsed and lemoned it down really nicely. We have deshelled all of the crab meat. I broke up all those snow crab legs and took all the meat out. And to the extent that this meat is actually already cooked, we are not going to saute this as we're going to do the other raw seafood before we put it into our mac. So first things first, these are the shrimp that have been deshelled and deveined. And I'm going to cut them basically in half, and I'm going to quarter my scallops, because basically I don't want it too small, but I want there to be a bite-sized piece pretty much in each piece of the mac and cheese that you take. All right, and we're back with our seafood lobster mac and cheese. Basically, we shredded down all the cheeses that we're going to use. Now, in my opening segment where I showed you the stuff that we're going to use, I've made a decision to use certain things and not others, so I may do things a little bit differently in this segment than what you saw in the opening segment. For example, I did indicate that I was going to use some white cooking sherry, but I'm not even going to use the sherry this time out. And the cheeses have changed up a little bit. Here we have some fresh shredded mozzarella cheese. We have some extra sharp cheddar cheese here. We have some smoked Gouda right here, Gruyere cheese here, and provolone, all freshly shredded, because if you buy it shredded, it has a film of wax over it already that keeps the shreds independent of each other and it doesn't clump up. So we shredded these real quick to get the most freshness out of these cheeses that we could without that extra wax buildup to keep it preserved. In the back here, we've also cut down our seafood. We have deshelled all of the crab meat that was in those snow crab legs. And we have washed and cleaned and deveined our shrimp, scallops, and lobster tail. And they've been cut into basically quarter-size pieces, because I believe in each forkful of the mac and cheese you should get some sense of seafood. Now what we're going to do now is basically set up, because we're going to put our elbows on first of all to start that process going, and then we're going to saute the seafood just a little bit, because it's going to cook further once we put it in the oven to bake. All right, and so now we're over by the stove, and this is the skillet that we're going to basically saute our seafood in, which is here. And we've also fired up the big pot with some water in it. We're going to add a couple of shots of salt, because this is what we're going to boil our pasta in. And we want the pasta to have some semblance of salt in it. And what we're also going to do, these are basically the shells that the lobster tails came in. And what we do here, we try to build flavor. We build structurally levels of flavor. So we're going to start by introducing the shells, which we're not going to waste, and we're also going to use these at the end to garnish, into the water that we're going to boil the pasta in, and that'll give it an extra seafoody taste. And then over here, we're just going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter, and we don't want to burn this butter. That's not the objective. We want to slowly, partially cook some of the seafood. Cook it down a little bit, just about halfway, because it's going to cook the rest of the way once we put it in the oven. We're also going to use what's left of this butter and the sauteing of the seafood as the roux for the base of our sauce. And we'll be back when things get a little bit more underway. Alright, so we're waiting for the butter to just begin to slowly boil up as you see it's doing. We don't want to burn the butter because the butter will burn quickly. We just want to use it to kind of halfway cook the seafood. We use 4 quarts of water in the pot that we're going to boil our pasta in. We got the lobster shells in there for the seasoning, and now we're going to enter the seafood into the butter. And just give a little color to it and brown it up a little bit. And we'll be back as soon as we brown some of this up a little bit. So these are pretty much just slightly colored. You put some paleness into them so we know we can go from here. So what I'm going to do now, by the way, these have been seasoned beforehand. These were seasoned nicely in a raw state, and they were in the fridge marinating for a while. So all of the seasoning has really kind of gotten into these beautiful nuggets of seafood. So what we're going to do now is take it off the fire, and we're going to put it on the side and reintroduce it later towards the back end. Alrighty, so we're back, and we've basically sauteed the seafood down to give it a nice, somewhat done color. Again, this is only about 3/4 of the way cooked. It's not even really cooked that well, because what we're going to do is bake it into the pasta in the oven once we're finished on the back end. Now, you see this juice I'm left with in the pot? You see that juice? We're going to use this as the juice for our roux, and we're going to make the base of our seafood pasta with this juice. And as we're preparing to do our roux, I just shot a little bit more butter in there, because we do need some oil in there to get the base. There's a lot of water juice from the sauteing of the seafood, so I just wanted to reintroduce a little bit of butter in there. Bring this up a little bit to a nice little boil. And we're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. And we're going to mix it slowly, and we're going to keep it moving. Turn this heat down just a little bit. And this already has the delicious seafood aroma to it. And basically what we're doing is just getting this flour all situated. And this is basically how we're going to make our roux. It's going to bunch up a little bit like that, but that's okay. The key is just keep your, and you should go to a whisk for this. Keep your whisk moving and absorb all of that flour that's in there. And our roux is bunched up nicely. Just cooking it down a little bit more, trying to get that flour taste, that raw flour taste out of there, because you don't really want that in the base of our macaroni and cheese. Just cooking it up a little bit more. And now I'm going to slowly add the heavy cream. We're keeping it moving as I'm doing this. You see that cream bubble up? So I'm basically going to keep doing this until I smooth this out to a nice creamy smooth sauce, which it will break down nicely, velvety smooth, and then we'll pick it up from there when I get it at that point. Okay, so my roux is nice and thickened. We've added the heavy cream, and we don't want it too thick, so we're going to just season the roux a little bit now. We're going to put about a half a teaspoonful of Old Bay into the roux, probably a quarter of a teaspoon of garlic powder, just a little shot of thyme, and again, we're building flavor, so that's what the attempt is here, and just a wee bit of pepper. We'll mix that into our roux. That's going to give us more of a seafood base, seafood flavored base for our mac and cheese. And we're just going to continue stirring this. And what I'm going to do shortly is sample it just slightly. Let's see what I've got. Oh, that's very good. That's very, ooh, that is absolutely delicious. Needs nothing. All right, so we're going to drain our pasta. We're going to set this down very low because we don't want to continue to keep cooking our sauce. Actually, I'm off base. I'm going to put it on low. And we're going to introduce some of our cheese. So we're going to take a nice little handful of provolone cheese. I'm going to mix it in. Introducing a nice handful of provolone. A nice decent amount of cheddar, because we want our sauce to be cheesy as well. Just a wee bit of mozzarella. That's what we call a wee bit. And we just mix all this in for a nice cheesy sauce. Okay, and all that delicious cheese is basically melted down, and we're taking this off the fire now because we don't want to continue cooking our cheese sauce. And just for you FYI, you can use this as a fondue. You can use this to dip vegetables in, tortilla chips, meatballs, whatever you want. This is basically the level that you want when you have yourself a little fondue, but we're going to take it a little bit past that. So I'm going to kick it up just a little bit more Old Bay, because those of you who have watched my channel know that is my go-to. All the cheese is mixed in here very nice. And with the elbows that we bought, in the opening sequence I showed several different variety, elbows and bow ties and twists and whatnot. But ultimately I decided to go with an open-ended macaroni and cheese because supposedly the sauce from the mac and cheese sticks to open-ended macaroni better than elbow macaroni. So I decided to go ahead and just use an open-ended macaroni. So now I'm going to basically take these shells out of here because we're done with them for now. We're going to put them on the side because we're going to come back to them. So we've even gotten the, again, building with flavor, we've even gotten the seafood flavor into the pasta. And this pasta is just slightly underdone. It's basically a little less than al dente because I don't want to cook it completely because we're going to go ahead and bake it more in the oven. So we're taking this off now. And I'm straining it. And then shaking it a little. Okay, so now we're going to take the pasta and introduce the pasta into our cheese sauce, the base. And as you can see, again, I was explaining, I went with these kind of noodles because they have an open end to them, as you can see, and they're kind of spiraled as well, so they should basically hold on to the sauce, or at least theoretically that's what they say. It holds the sauce better. So now we just mix all this in. Look at that lovely gooey cheese. And the fact of the matter is, the fire is off because, again, we don't want to cook this any further because it's going to go into the oven. In fact, we're going to preheat our oven to 360. And we'll be back. All right, so we have finished mixing the mac into our base, and we're getting ready to layer now. And we've already greased the bottom of the pan with some butter. And you can use pan cooking spray if you want. That's completely up to you. But I just went with butter. So this is the first layer down. And then I'm going to use my first layer of seafood. And we have a pretty good amount of seafood here, so it should be very, very seafoody with every bite. Little crab meat. Mixed in there. Yeah, that's looking pretty serious. And then we're going to hit with first layer of Gouda cheese. Some provolone. Of course, some mozzarella. Everybody loves mozzarella. A little of this. And we come back, and of course a little cheddar. Gotta get that orange cheddar in there. You ain't got no mac and cheese if you ain't got orange cheddar in there. Unless you're going with the white cheddar sauce, which is fine. You can use extra sharp or sharp white cheddar. But I want a little yellow in mine. And then we basically repeat. Next level. Get this level out real good. Got that oven going at 350, 360 degrees Fahrenheit. Just want to spread this out evenly. Right? Okay, so that next level is set up there, and we come back with more seafood. And this should basically knock them dead. This is a Memorial Day side dish that I'm bringing to my son's house because we're going to have a little Memorial Day dinner. And I volunteered to do the seafood mac and cheese. And I get that flavor in there too, get that juice. We want to use all that because we definitely want that flavor in there. Flavor's got to be in the house. It's crab meat. Oh, there's the shell. See that? Got to be mindful to get those shells out of there. Nobody want to be chomping and bite down on a seafood shell. That would spoil the whole idea. So just finish up this, and then we're going to basically take the rest of our cheese, put it over the top of this, slap it in the oven about a half an hour, and check on it. And we'll be back when we're ready. I'm going to just top the rest of that cheese on here, and we'll be back to finish off. All right, so now we've basically layered our mac and cheese with our seafood and all of our extravagant cheeses. And we put a little paprika on the top and parsley for color. And now I'm going to come back now with just some breadcrumbs just to drizzle just across the top. And the thing with these breadcrumbs is you want to gauge these as they begin to turn brown. You can recognize that your mac and cheese is pretty much going to be ready. So it's just a light dusting of that. And then we are off to the oven. Oven set at 360. We're going to cook this for about a half an hour, 25 minutes or half an hour, but we're going to definitely keep an eye on it as we cook. And we'll be back to see the end result. Alrighty, ladies and gents, so it's 30 minutes later. We've had it in the oven at 360 for the last 30 minutes, and now it's time to check it and see exactly what we're working with. You gently take off. Oh yes, that looks more than splendid. More than splendid. So what I'm going to do is give it a little test. I'm going to stick this little prod in it to make sure, right in the center. And if it comes back out, dry, it's done. It's basically done. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to set it back in the oven just to get the top browned a little bit more. Just the way I like it. And then we'll bring it out, finish it off, and bring this whole video home. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Real Cooking with Rapid Rod, and today's menu was seafood, lobster mac and cheese. And the seafoods we have in there are scallops, shrimp, fresh crab meat, and lobster tails. So we have browned it for another 10 minutes or so, just to let the top get nice and browned. And we are ready to dig in. On that note, we will prepare to grit, and grease. Grit, and grease. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. I hope my video enlightened you a little bit about making seafood macaroni and cheese. I know I had a lot of fun, and I'm going to have even more fun eating this. So until we next meet, ladies and gentlemen, bon appetit. Okay, and my favorite moment of truth, I'm going to have a little sample. But again, because I'm taking this to dinner tomorrow night, I am not going to spoil it too much. So here's a little piece of, looks like lobster. And I'm just going to be over here in the corner. And look at that. That's just what we want. And let me see how this comes along. Wow. That seafood explodes on over the taste buds, over the top of all the taste buds. And just celebrates. Whoa, what a delicious savory flavor. The cheese, the seafood, the mac, perfectly seasoned, perfectly cooked. Oh, this right here is a meal in and of itself. I'm sure my sons are going to be more than happy to partake of this. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we out of here.